Okay, this is a Sany 8100. It's a 100 metric ton crawler crane. It's called Sany SCC8100, Series Crawler Crane 8100. We've got about 111 feet of main boom on here and 4 feet of jib on the rooster. That's what they call that little jib sticking off the end of the boom there with that single line. They call that a rooster. It's auxiliary sheave, auxiliary boom head, and it's 4 feet long. The purpose of that is to keep separation between these two so that these two don't hit each other. This crane is a 2012. It's got about 5,000 hours on it. Weighs in its current configuration, weighs about 220,000 pounds. Has a maximum lift of 100 metric tons, which is 110 standard tons, about 220,000 pounds. About what it's weighing. These are pretty standard configuration cranes. A lot of crane operators don't like these because they're not an American brand. They're not a Manitowoc. They're not an American. They're not a link belt. Of course, neither is a Kobelco, and Kobelco owns Manitowoc. Liebherr isn't exactly American either, and they make some pretty damn good cranes. I've run this Sany a little bit, and I don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's a bad machine at all. And really, your components are pretty much all made in China anyway. So this runs a Rexroth hydraulic system. It's got a variable speed pump with controls in the cab that you can vary your hydraulic flow, especially on your number 3 winch. But it does it automatically with your slewing. It runs a Cummins engine, a 240 horsepower Cummins. 100 gallons of hydraulic oil and 100 gallons of diesel fuel. One of the things I like about Sanys is that these weights are on the side of the tracks, 11,000 pound side weights. So when you swing to the side and you're working off the side, you've got 11,000 pounds of counterweight on the other side. Most of your other cranes run car body weights, which are between the tracks, and they don't help so much when you're working off the side. But these really help you stabilize when you're working off the side. Each one of these stack weights is 6,500 pounds, and this base plate is 22,000, I think is what this base plate is. I usually haul the base plate and 3 stack weights together on a truck, and then haul the 2 side weights and 3 stack weights on another truck. Makes for loads around 45,000 pounds. With a little bit of boom laying on top. I always heard, if you're running a Sany, the problems that you'll have with it are electrical. A lot of the electrical system on here is Vicon, or Vickers, excuse me, not Vicon, Vickers. Vicon is Manitowoc, Vickers. But Sany does, and Schneider. You'll find a lot of Schneider components, Schneider switches. But Sany does all their own wiring, of course, and that's where you're going to run into problems. And I'll show you one of the main places here in a second. This boom's a little over 5 feet wide from pin to pin here at the bottom. That's your swing motor, your slowing gear. So I've got the crane flipped around backwards right now, so these are your final drives, your control lines that come into your finals. In here in this side compartment, this is where your main problem is going to be on a Sany, is that box right there. That's your main power distribution box. It's full of relays. There's about, I think about 8 relays, 6 or 8 relays in there, and they are really prone to malfunctioning. They get a lot of corrosion in there, and they have terrible problems. This is just kind of a storage box. I keep my manuals in this watertight box I got from Walmart. Not watertight, but it's tight enough. You've got a storage box right here, which is where I keep my remote control for assembly, a few pins, that kind of thing. Come up here on the top deck. This is where you check your antifreeze level. On the back there is where you check your hydraulic oil level. There's your winch number 1. This is your main. That's the one that runs the block. We're running a 75-ton Johnson with 4 parts of line on it right now. This is a 1-inch rotation resistant rope, both on the main and on the auxiliary. This is the auxiliary winch, winch number 2, and it runs that ball out on the auxiliary sheave, and it's 1-inch rotation resistant. I'll show you the difference between rotation resistant and IWRC. This is winch number 3, which this runs your boom up and down. See, this rope goes up here and it makes 10 parts right here. It goes back and forth 10 times, and that runs your boom up and down. And you can see this rope is what you call IWRC. It's regular strand, sometimes called RS. And this rope is rotation resistant, a much smaller braid in that rope. When you see that small braid like that, you're probably dealing with rotation resistant. Here's a top view of these counterweights stacked up. There's a chain that runs down the middle of these and locks into that base plate, and then you put this plate on here to tighten this down, tightens this chain, holds these counterweights in place so that they don't fall off when you're moving around. You can see somebody let this one get hit and bent, and it was actually probably when they were lifting. These 2 cylinders here extend out and they lift this base plate off the ground, and you lock it into place and retract the cylinders. Really powerful cylinders. And I would bet that they were on, somebody was on uneven ground and tried lifting, and that hit the bottom of the frame of the machine and bent that. Little details like that, that's the biggest problem with running cranes, is the little details will kill you. And this is where you check your hydraulic. This is where you check your diesel fuel. Holds 100 gallons, that's a fuel tank right there. This is part of your LMI system, this little, what they call the Pharos, little light. It'll shine green when you're in a good condition, good working condition. When you're within 95% of your rated load, it will change to yellow. And when you exceed your rated load, it'll change to red. And that's also when you get an alarm. We'll walk around the back, I'll show you the motor here. Oh boy, if I can get the door open. There we go. There's Cummins motor. Rexroth hydraulic pump. All the system for the hydraulic pumping. These cranes have kind of a reputation among operators for not being well liked. It's just because of the controls in the cab are a little different, which I'll show you that in part 2.